This is the AI Assisted Organization podcast hosted by myself, Piers and my co-host and co-founder of Implement AI, Dr. Aalok Shukla. Good morning, Aalok.
Good morning, Piers. How are you?
I'm all right. I had my eyes lasered, so hopefully I can see you pretty clearly. Let's see if it continues. It's not quite right, but I've got to give it a week or so. But I guess we're leading up to the sort of holiday period. I think we're going to talk at the end of this about what we're planning to do before that in terms of talking about next year. And also we may have a little bit of a break as well on the pod for a couple of weeks. So this week we're going to go through. Last week we had a slightly different sort of format. I hope you enjoyed that. Actually, we basically used a workshop that we did with some of our AI insiders. If you haven't signed up yet, please do. And that was quite interesting. It was really about kind of like looking into next year and focusing on growth. But we missed out quite a bit of news last week, so I'm not going to go over all the news because there's been quite a lot. I'm going to try and focus on the news which is more, focused on AI and for business. So we've got some Implement AI updates, and also we're then going to have got a theme this week is really about training. So not just training people, training yourself. That's obviously one of the first competitive advantages you can create with artificial intelligence, but also training models as well. And by combining those two things, you can, get ahead really quickly. And there's some great research by Goldman Sachs I was reading over the weekend about the fact that this technology is out there, but very few people are actually using it. They're toying with it, they're playing with it, but the implementation, the actual deployment of it has been quite slow. So again, going into 2024, we're going to talk about this over our podcast over the next couple of weeks, is deployment is going to be the secret to success. So let's get into it. So ChatGPT is 1 year old. Can you believe it? It
Wow.
feels like a lot longer than that, doesn't it? I mean, I only started using it probably in February, March even. It's been around for a while before that. There was GPT-2 people using, but in terms of its kind of the kind of knowledge of this technology being available and the media picking it and people using it and it going from 0 to 100 million users in a space of 2 months. This is only 1 year old, and it ended the year with quite a bang. So we touched upon it a couple of weeks ago. The whole sort of debacle at OpenAI, the sort of governance structure changing the board, defying the CEO. We'll touch on that in a minute. But ChatGPT is 1 year old, and it's kind of changed the world in many ways. Not just ChatGPT. We'll talk about other models as well. But we've seen it go from it's quite a simple sort of prompt that everyone could use. Now you've got enterprise versions, you've got paid versions. They've launched GPTs. Now they have paused the rollout of the GPT store. I think it's too easy to people to access your system prompt. So when you create a GPT, this is like a custom chat GPT basically, using a system prompt where you tell it how to do a certain thing in a certain way. Then you could create a store because you could have a fantastic maths tutor or whatever it might be, or artistic guidance. But if everybody can access your prompts, they can just copy it and stop paying for it. So that's been a bit of an issue. And also there's been some people who have been able to access some of the documents that have been uploaded. So I think they've kind of slowed down on that a bit. And what we may find is that some of the whatever they tended to ship is being slowed down slightly. So Sam Altman, because moving on, the former CEO is again the current CEO. He's back. There's been a bit of a change there at the board. I think Microsoft are going to have somebody on the board. I mean, why you'd put £10 billion into a business or back it to that kind of tune and not have some representation on the board? I just don't know. I think it just shows the power of these companies in terms of their negotiating ability. But now they're going to see some hopefully improved governance because having sat on the board of very large companies and government organisations, the governance there was absolutely abysmal. So hopefully that'll change. And there'll be a lot of theories, a lot of conversations and chat, and kind of conspiracy theories, what happened and why, and some of it was probably internal tension about the direction of the business. People who are focused on research as opposed to monetizing it, and also there's been some news about Q Star, which is kind of an algorithm which has potentially improved the models to the point where people think that they may be nearing AGI. It's making it better at mathematics, which is something that large language models aren't particularly good at. So whether Q Star is anything like that, whether we're nearing AGI, we're not going to find out for some time. And I think they're going to slow down and be very, very, very cautious going forwards about any news leaking about anything like that. Now we've seen that Elon Musk and all these other people have stepped into the fray. Jensen Huang about
Yeah.
AGI and when it may happen. It's like 2 years, 3 years, but no one seems
Jensen
to be
said
saying
5.
it's 10
He said,
years now, do they? Yeah, he's
no, no,
5.
no, no, no.
Musk is 2, 3.
Yeah.
So no,
It
no,
also
no
depends
one's
on the
saying it's 10
definition.
years.
No,
That
no,
is
no.
true.
And it depends on the definition. And also, like we talked about before, like having a almost like a constellation of different agents that can work together as a hive mind, that's going to probably be the first incarnation that's going to kind of come. But I mean, yeah, GPT is only 1 year old. I mean, I cannot imagine not having access to this technology. It's so profound. Like I had a blood test last week and I was uploading it and I was getting some detailed analysis and information and even like nutritional recommendations and different things from within there. It's so powerful. And then during that whole fracas, Claude were releasing their new stuff, and then so many of these open source models are really really good as well. So I mean, the genie's out of the bottle. Like the power of these systems is so good.
But yeah, the power of these systems is like you say. I don't know how I'd live without them now. In terms of having this almost like a time machine, I call it, where the amount of time you can save, the amount of information you can access, the amount of information you can process,
And
was just
expertise.
was unheard of 6 months ago, and mine a year ago. So, but people still aren't using it. Like I said this in the workshop we did last week, we turned into the podcast that when I do quite a lot of keynotes, we do lots of workshops, and we ask the audience, how many of you are using this technology personally just to augment yourself? And it's 0 to 4% maximum in a room. So you as an individual have the ability to literally get ahead of 96 to 100% of the people you're competing with, either at work or in terms of your competitive businesses. And what you're seeing is, and we'll touch on this now, moving on, is what you're seeing is the great thing is a lot of some of this is open source, some of it's proprietary, but you're seeing these huge steps even in the space of 12 months in the last few months
Yeah.
because there's a huge amount of competition. And there's a lot of money being thrown at it. So you're seeing step changes. You're seeing, ChatGPT launches, ChatGPT 4 Turbo. There's got 130,000 tokens, was it? Then Claude launched with 200,000 tokens. Now, tokens, the context, what you can upload inside your prompt when you're working this model isn't everything, but you can just see that they're constant, their competition. It makes you wonder really is how far could they really go if they really pushed it?
I mean, I started really thinking about this a lot, like because I was reading some books yesterday, and I was thinking to myself, like, half the time I'm reading the book, I'm having a conversation in my head about like the ideas from it. I was thinking I need to write things down. But what I started playing with is like keeping the voice of GPT mode on and just taking notes as I'm reading the book, basically, right? And so I think that we're going to be definitely transitioning to this like always on systems, and once you start getting the benefits of these augmented systems, it's going to be much better. And like there's been a few Chinese models that have been released recently that are open source and they're at a level of comparable to GPT-4. So I really think that like over the new year, next year is when it's going to start like really accelerating even more, basically.
I mean, it's like this humane pin, isn't it? You can imagine that in a couple of years that everybody you meet, every interaction you have, anything you do
It should
is
be.
being recorded.
I was at 2 brilliant meetings last week, and I was actually thinking to myself, like, I wish all those conversations had been recorded because like there were so many interesting opportunities and angles I was talking about with different business owners, and I was thinking, I could have followed up with something much much better if I had access to those things. So we're going that way, for sure.
So if you go back to the basics really, which was prompting, we started off with chatbots essentially, and then you had sort of text to image, your mid journeys, your Dales, then you got text to video, we tend to like Runway, and now you're seeing these things begin to accelerate. And then the last couple of weeks, there's been quite a few developments. So there's one called Pika Labs or Pika Labs, Pika Labs
Yeah,
1.0, and they call this idea to video. So we've always, and it's been on AI of the week quite a few times. I've played with Runway, which gives you these kind of 4 to 8 second video clips. So you can either do a text prompt or you can upload an image, and it'll start from there and give you 4 seconds. You can extend it to 8 seconds. But you're seeing that the quality of this video generation
yeah,
and the length of them and the ability now to, and we'll touch on it, Runway, I've now added more camera movement, to pan out, to pan left, pan right, to zoom in,
it's
means that, yeah,
crazy.
to do sort of, to fill in. So as you zoom out, it creates more for the outside of the image. And this was done in photos like Adobe Firefly has done this. But now you can do it in video. So Picker Labs is a new one. It's still quite limited access, but it's amazing when you have a look at that in terms of the video generation. And a new, really interesting one, which I think is fascinating actually, is Stability have launched SDXL Turbo. So this is their, bit like Runway, this is their prompt or image to video generation. The difference is, well, this actually is images, but the difference is with this one is, now we've talked several weeks ago about GANs. So these things where you can have a picture of somebody and you can pull their nose and turn their head or move their head. And as you move their head, it'll create whatever should be behind them, for example. What you're seeing now is real-time image, and then you'll see it quite soon, video generation. So you write in a text box a dog, you see an image of a dog. You then can write, okay, a dog walking down the street at night. It's a dog. Then the complication is never the same dog. So you might start with a Labrador, as you say, it's at night. Now you've got an Alsatian, and then you can start literally working the prompt, working the image by typing or talking to it eventually, and you can begin to generate images and videos, or the first frames of videos. They're absolutely spot on, because you're not often with prompting. You write the prompt. It takes a couple of seconds to create the image. It's not quite right. You do it again, again, again. Whereas now you can keep deleting things, adding things, and seeing the impact it's having on the image or that video. And that's just bonkers.
I mean, next year we're going to see, next year we're going to see so many like independent films, independent series, independent things. It's just going to be like whole new things that kind of like come out. Like it's
But it's almost
exciting,
yeah,
and very scary for
but you've
for,
seen it,
for
that kind of
filmmakers and stuff like that
flickery,
as well.
sort of constantly changing kind of aesthetic that you get currently, at least with this technology. It's become a thing. You're seeing TV adverts now. I've seen lots of videos on social media. Well, it's fantastic. Now, eventually, that sort of flicker image will disappear, because every time you create a new, a film typically is 24 frames a second, and with artificial intelligence, it'll create a slightly different frame every time, different hairstyle, different dog, and that makes it look quite weird. But that
Yeah,
eventually will go away. You'll be able to have sort of like almost like a sieve through the whole thing, where when you type in else, a Labrador or a dog, it's the same dog, and that's just then changed and moved, and the background's
yeah.
changed. So, I mean, we always talk about the business applications, and I think that text to image has been obvious in many ways, and if you become quite good at it in terms of not using stock image anymore. Text to video, text to animation especially, has some huge use case in terms of the businesses and being able to use them. I think animation,
Even image to
yeah,
video,
animation is going to be
image to
huge.
video as well. Because like if you think about like most of these kind of like Instagram carousels where it's like a static image and stuff like this, I saw so many memes where people had turned the meme into a video now, basically, right? So it became a reel, and obviously like reels and short videos are more engaging on social media because it's like moving. So being able to like turn old carousels, old content into dynamic video, and like short, different things like this, so you can have like much more engaging social media stuff from your old stuff, basically. I mean, they've even shown that like AI is starting to affect like the people on these like Upwork platforms and things like this, because more and more people are able to like get things done faster. But I think next year is going to be, if you're not using AI in your content creation, it'll be like, why, basically, right?
Yeah, you're behind the curve. So I've run through these things. So you've seen Runway ML. They've now launched, they had Gen 2 launched a couple of weeks ago. Now they're adding the ability to kind of move the camera, as I was saying, pan left, pan right, zoom in, zoom out. So that's powerful as well. Then you've got Leonardo Live Canvas. So
I
Leonardo,
know
haven't
that's
used it. It's another pretty powerful, isn't it, image generation tool. And now you can upload images, and then you can prompt to sort of amend them essentially. And also you can upload an image and upscale it as well. Then you've got ideogram, that's another one. That's image upscaling. So upscaling is really powerful. You've got an old image, the image is not quite right.
yeah,
You've lost, you saved a low res version, you want a high res version, you can't use it. It's quite frustrating sometimes. You can upscale images, and you've seen some fantastic examples of that. And now Runway can do upscaling. There's one called Crea, a new one called Magnific, which is fantastic. Go and have a look at that one. So you can take, for example, a Roblox blocky character. I saw one which was, I think it was the original Tomb Raider, Lara
okay.
Croft, and it upscales it into a photorealistic person. It's bonkers.
Oh.
So you can now upscale anything to photorealism.
No, I mean, the thing is, all these engines are so powerful. I think what we're going to see is like they're all going to be competing for users and for people to build platforms with them. And they're all going to be offering lots of credits, basically, right? Like, so if you're either trying to build some kind of application or you're a business owner, all of these platforms are going to be wanting you to use them, and they'll be trying to offer you credits and stuff. So I think as a content creator, like, there's so much opportunity to create stuff. I've seen some amazing adverts created where there's a guy who pretends to be Napoleon, and he's like walking with a cardboard thing on his head, and he clicks his head, and he's in like a kind of Coke commercial, then he's in a different commercial, and it's everything being switched around, and it's quite incredible, really. Like, you see what's possible.
He made a full BMW advert,
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
guy, which is worth seeing as well. So essentially, what we're saying is that it's moving very quickly because of the
Yes,
competition and the money that's going into it. And with the example we're using here is image generation, video generation. So it's gone from
and
pretty
audio
basic
as well.
stuff, pretty awful looking images, to very simple cartoon characters, all the way through to photorealistic images, and now you can create them in real time. That's what's happened in the space of 6 months, not a year. So if you're like me, I'm quite visual in terms of where I think, I wave my arms around a lot, point things, draw things, but I can't draw to save my life. But now it's gone away. I can be as creative
Yeah,
almost as any creative I've ever hired. At least get 80% of the way there, and then give them the other 20% to fix. Well, let's move on. That's all very exciting. So one thing that we've touched upon again, which is also important for all of us, is the United States, Britain, 28 countries now, they have actually signed an agreement to create AI which is secure by design. So the idea here is to prevent rogue actors. So AI, we're huge optimists of AI. We think it's going to create abundance. There will be issues long term about workforces and how many jobs are available. But essentially, the problem with AI is not the fact that you're going to have this sort of Terminator style nonsense in the future. It's bad actors. It's humans that use technology in negative ways. So hopefully, these sort of countries have got together to try and prevent that, and they'll work together to try and keep it as safe as possible. But eventually, someone's going to misuse this. Probably, it's more going to be cybercrime. But we'll come on to it. You'll see that they're now creating a couple of million new different materials. So this is really powerful, and it's important the nation states do have some way of working together to try and control it. Now, another interesting one, moving on, is Amazon Q. This is nothing to do with Q Star and OpenAI. This is Amazon Q. Have launched AWS, their reInvent event. Have launched something called Q. And this is quite interesting, Aalok, because essentially what it seems to be is the ability for a company, an organization, to almost like a rag, really,
yeah.
like a talk to your documents. So it's if the Amazon's, it's not quite productivity, it's not email, it's not word processing or Excel spreadsheets, but they're kind of now sort of creeping into the productivity space, because they're going to offer organizations the ability to use artificial intelligence to look at all their corporate documents, create a Q&A for customers,
Exactly.
for employees, for various stakeholders. And that's quite interesting. So, and they're creating their own models, as we know, quite big models actually. So it's quite interesting seeing, if you look at the sort of the lay of the land, how all these organizations are beginning to compete in different areas and beginning to overlap.
They have to, because like AWS obviously stores lots of stuff, and many people put their documents and stuff like that on there. But the thing is, like, why would you keep your documents storing on AWS if it was, like, let's just say, static and dumb, and you've got no ability to interact and access that document, versus if you were using Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud, and they've got their AI built on top of that and can allow you to do that. Like, you have to. It's basically the electric window for a car. Like, if you don't offer access to that, then it's broken, basically, right? Like, and I think this is the issue. But I think, like,
Or you go and retrofit
yeah,
it.
yeah,
You go and find someone else who will build you one.
exactly. But I think
That's a good point, actually. I hadn't thought of it like that. Yeah, so you're right. So Amazon
they have
AWS,
to.
a lot of
They,
documentation there, a lot of
they have
information. Yeah,
they
they've got to
have
try and
to.
overlay.
Otherwise, they can't justify the cost of it. And also, like, the cost at the kind of like platform level of these models is coming down quite a lot. So they have to, like, incentivize to kind of keep people with their cloud spend, with different people. But I also saw that, like, so there was a couple of papers where they were comparing, not necessarily papers, but like analysis. And the Q model, obviously, it's good, but nothing is GPT-4 level. You understand? Like, and they're barely scraping, the older version of 3.5. And there was lots.
I suppose in a way, it's like they're compete to having Azure and OpenAI access, the API access to like a Chat
Yeah.
GPT. They've got to provide something. Obviously, they're not partner of OpenAI, but okay, that makes a lot of sense. But I wonder if it's for large organizations or SMEs? We shall find out as the details become available. And then another really interesting one, which is kind of a longer term play really in terms of business use cases, but it will have a profound impact on everything we do eventually. It's a Google DeepMind. You've seen the protein folding, and now it's called GNOME, and basically it's a way of they've created materials by looking at crystals, and they've created I think it's 2 million new potential materials. I think 380,000 of them have been tested. I think they'll be stable as materials we can actually create. If you think about that in terms of technology, chip design, construction, there are so many ways in which new materials can be used. These are things that have taken years and years and years for material scientists to develop. And actually, I'm going to see a friend of mine today who is a material scientist from the Sheffield University. So I'm going to ask him about this. But you're now seeing that not only we created new healthcare related inventions like protein folding, now you're seeing it in materials as well. And you're going to see this again in everything we do. Is that artificial intelligence will start to design things and understand things and create things in ways that we don't even understand.
Yeah, and fundamental science and physics discoveries and things will start to come in the future as well. Because, Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, was saying that they use AI to actually design the chips for the AI because it's impossible to fit that many transistors and all the different details in that level. How things are now. So we're already in that space, and it's just going to get more and more advanced when you've got different materials which can be made in a specific way as well.
And that's AI. So AGI we talked about earlier, just touched upon it, is that people think this is going to be Elon Musk is 2-3 years. I'm not sure who the guys that were sort of in 2025 was it? No, they were till 2045 are thinking now, like Ray Kurzweil, people like that. But no one's saying it's 10 years away. It's
different definitions.
2 to 5. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Some people say it's on par with a human. Something is a beyond a human. But we are going to see something approaching AGI because I don't think it's not on or off. It's not binary. It's that there's a process. There's a sort of continuum to get.
It's already beat the Turing test, right? Like in many situations, right? People are also using AI companions and stuff. So the Turing test is gone, and then it's just a question of when they say above human intelligence, which level of human intelligence? Are we talking about Einstein level, or we're talking about average person level? Because in my opinion, for most things, it's actually exceeding it, and it's just a question of adding in more different areas over time.
I mean, we don't talk about AGI a lot on this podcast because it's one of those things that it's quite hard to sort of pin it down, but it cannot. If this is created, whether it's a human level or it's artificial super intelligence at the Einstein level, this will change everything. It will change our whole world, the way in which we do business. And there's again, the important thing is to go from zero AI understanding, implementation, deployment in your business or your life to AGI is going to be a huge disruptive change. So you've got to get it on the sort of onto that continuum now, so you understand what's happening.
All your systems have to become connected. That's the bottom line, right? All your systems have to be cognified so that when you get better intelligence, they can all be upgraded basically. But if they're not even plugged in, you can't enhance or upgrade.
Yes, we're talking about implementing AI. Might have changed the company names. Implement AGI. So I don't know what that's going to look like, but that's going to be even more complicated, isn't it?
It's fine. It's within AI.
And I think what we're going to do, Alok, and then we'll do the last pod next week, the week after, I'm not sure we'll do it, is do some predictions for 2024 about artificial intelligence, what's going to happen, which will be quite interesting. Looking at coming back to in a year, quite interesting in terms of what's going to happen, the business implementations, use cases, deployment implementation, and kind of where we think it's going to go.
If I think back to April or May when we did some of our first sessions, and I think about what was accessible then, and I look at what's possible now, I didn't think it would be so much advanced within 9 months, right? But now the pace accelerating. So yeah, on that next episode, that'll be interesting. We'll have to come up with some.
Yeah, well, I thought there would be a slight trough of disillusionment, but not disillusionment's the wrong word, but it'd be the same kind of shape, but it would be quite a shallow one. But it hasn't really happened. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. So moving on. So implement AI again. If you're new to our pod, this is probably all new to you. So we've written quite a few white papers. One is about the AI assisted organization. That's kind of our framework, how you go about moving from having no AI in your business to being, AI first somewhere down the line. And we're focused on really about how do you go about implementing AI in your business? What's the process? How do you pick off workflows? How do you go about doing that? Then we read another white paper about the augmented workforce. We're all going to be augmented. You should be personally, your business should be, your team should be, your co-workers should be. If people aren't augmented by AI, why the hell are they going to come and work for you? They'll go and work somewhere else where they are augmented, and they can focus on the more meaningful things they want to do, as opposed to the mundane and the admin we all have to do. And also training as well. So we're now really ramping up our training academy. We've had some fantastic feedback. If you go and look on LinkedIn on our training courses, and these are things which are sort of, there are up to 10 people. They're kind of tuned to your business. You can ask questions, not just some video you're watching. It's actually the real thing. But some great feedback. And training, again, we're going to talk about it a bit later, is your first competitive advantage. This is where you make a difference immediately in terms of how you use this technology in your business, in your personal life as well. And to get started, normally people start on our AI Activate program, a 60-day sprint, the policy, governance, there's some training. We look at your workflows, we pick one off and we automate it through using artificial intelligence. And basically prove to you the ROI. And once you understand that, typically we've seen some huge ROIs from our clients. But then the question then is, how do I deploy this in my business more permanently? And then we create or deploy AI agents within your business. Anything else to add there, Aalok?
No, that's exactly it. Because like the key thing is like if you start applying this and understand like the key areas which are going to drive revenue, you need to start getting those plans in place because like January is coming up and you want to start moving ahead of your competition because shifts like this do not repeat.
And then let's move on to our theme this week, which is training. So training is an enormous subject, right? But we want to focus on just try and give you some insight into two elements of it. One is training people, yourself, your team, your co-workers, your workforce essentially, but also then training the AI you're using so that when you put the two together, it's even more powerful, isn't it?
Exactly. So I think the way you want to think about things is like when you're working with AI, let's look at the different levels. There's using basic or no skills on a public AI system, and that could be Mid-Journey, ChatGPT, Claude, whatever. And that's someone who doesn't even really know how to prompt and is just using it and just asking questions. So quite a lot of the time there, the outputs can be quite varied and also not necessarily in the way that you want it to be. And this is quite often where people say, oh, this doesn't work or this isn't in the right way. The second level is where someone actually understands, basic prompt engineering and even potentially intermediate prompt engineering, where they're able to actually specify, give examples of what they're looking to do, potentially use supplemental data sets or load in documents to help guide the system. So now the person is able to use the engine of the general AI system, but they're able to tune it with the fuel that they want to be able to get what they want. So that's like going from basic skills on a public system to more intermediate or advanced skills on a public system. And then the third level is where you start using advanced skills on your own tune system. So that's where you've not just used documents within your prompt, you're also using, customization of your language model. And this is where it's very good to be able to understand how different systems can work because you can actually augment some of these AIs, either an open source one or even GPT, and some of these different ones allow you to do it with different knowledge bases. And then it can get it to answer from those specifically first. So you're not just getting the information of general GPT that would answer to everyone. It will be looking at your company information first as the resource area and then answering from there. So that's where you're using like a RAG system, retrieval augmented generation, or fine tuning, where you actually train the system by giving it lots of pairs of examples of like what you're trying to look for. And the key thing here is that like, why would you want to do these things? Because you would get like quicker answers with less complex prompting, the more tuned the model and system is. So there's tuning the people and there's tuning the system as well, basically. So I think the key thing here is like, if there's a phrase, isn't it, right? Like, if you do, mediocre actions, then you'll get mediocre results, isn't it, right? If you want professional level output, you can't have an amateur input, basically, right? But if you actually like tune up your system so that your own systems, like that you're working within your company, like the knowledge base, let's say all the customer support documentation, all the successful emails are loaded in, and at the same time you train your team on how to answer and process, queries from customers, they're going to be able to get much better answers back from the AI system and potentially also create a system which would almost be AI first over time. So the key thing is that you have to start working on your own, AI operating system and start developing your people and start developing your own AI systems, basically.
Yeah, so the way I liken it to is the saxophone analogy. You can hand someone a saxophone, right, and they'll beautiful instrument, make beautiful music, but most people, and with no training, don't understand how it works. It's going to sound flipping awful. And we're looking at
Yeah.
creating a new white paper by the AI operating system, and it's like an XY axis really. There's two axes, and as you go from left to right, you've got one is training, understanding the technology, how to use it, and the other one is having the technology, which becomes more and more sort of complicated and fine-tuned and more custom to your business and your use cases over time. As you kind of move from left to right to the sort of top right quadrant, what you're getting essentially is more control. As Alok was saying, you're getting
Yes.
better outputs because you're getting better inputs, and then you're also getting more control. But I also like to think of it as you're also getting more margin, because what you're essentially doing is you're extracting more value. It's more efficient, it's more productive, and you're creating more value using the models with a team that are trained to extract the sort of nth degree out of it.
Agree. And that's where it's like you have to invest in training your team, but also in creating your own AI systems, because this is what's going to give you the advantage. If your team can answer, more customer questions in less time and at a higher standard, if they're able to like follow up with more people in a better way, if you've got the foundational systems so that customer success activities can be done partially AI assisted, I mean, basically you can interact with more people at a higher way and higher quality in less time. And this is how you scale your business, basically, right? It's like creating the flywheel. And if you don't start creating the flywheel, you're always going to be manual, repeat, and you're not going to get the engine thrust of the AI, helping you drive you forward. And that's the key thing here, basically, because also once team members who are in AI assisted organizations start talking with their colleagues who are not in it, and they start saying, "Oh, how do you do this task?" It's like, "Oh, I use this." Like, really? Like that, we're going to start to see shifts. And I think the key thing we have to understand is like the world we are in now, because of the speed of information, is volatile. I don't know if you remember the Silicon Valley Bank crisis, where basically Twitter over a weekend basically like made everyone withdraw their money and caused it to kind of implode. The speed of information causing changes is huge. Even the Twitter, the OpenAI thing, basically, right? That played out massively. So I think the key thing is like when these shifts happen next year, it's not going to be a gradual shift of customers or employees and stuff like that. It's going to become quite stark and quite quick. And the thing is, once the momentum has shifted in the wrong direction, it's going to be very hard for you to catch up, basically. And I think the key thing we're trying to emphasize and communicate is that you want your company to be ready for it when the wave kicks in, basically.
Yeah, so I think that kind of up to that, like an exponential curve, it really begins to take off. Um, I said this to a couple of talks I've done. It's 2023, 2024 will be years where people look back in the history books and say that is where it actually changed. And by 2025, 6, 7, if you're not thinking about this, you're not thinking's too late. Actually, you haven't done something about
That's just
this.
accelerating.
Yeah,
Those
it's going to be
those
very
guys are
hard to catch
accelerating,
up.
basically, right?
So
Yeah,
we
yeah.
talk to organisations, don't we? We talk to organisations every day, okay? And you've got those. I've been through, cloud. We've been through the internet, unified communications. I've seen lots of different sort of S curves in terms of innovations where they're being picked up. And organisations are different. I think with artificial intelligence, the feedback we tend to get is that they understand that there's something different here. This is now access to intelligence, and they understand that they need to have the training and the understanding to learn how to use it because it's happening. The problem is it's just corporate inertia. It's just the time it takes to get things done, the time it takes people to
And
focus on
fear.
this because they've got a day job. There's fear as well. They've got other projects to get done. But I think that you've got to put a team on this. This is why we have our sort of fractional chief
Yeah.
AI officers as well. You've got to put a team on it or some resource or some people. Part of their day is looking at this,
They have to have the
understanding,
mindset.
yeah, how do we skill ourselves up? How do we skill ourselves up personally? That's one of the training. How do we skill our team up? So we start with AI fundamentals and prompt engineering. As I was saying earlier, it all ties in, is that prompt engineering is not just about text anymore. It's about, okay, how do I stop buying stock images? How do I stop buying stock video? Because I know how to prompt these
Yeah.
tools to create images or video that, all intents and purposes, is almost free compared to what it used to cost you. And the copyright law is getting there now. There's lots of news on that in China even. You're seeing that copyright in many ways
Yeah.
is AI. It's kind
Got
of
approved.
it's kind of going away, isn't
Yeah.
it? So the issues that are blocking use of this are falling away. So having your team understand how to start to use this is absolutely really important. In 2024, we're going to focus on this quite a lot.
All the limits are psychology. not technology.
Well, and also, and on things like fine tuning, customization, you're now seeing, ChatGPT, all these providers of large language models, they understand, they know what the issues are, they know what the blockers are. So they're beavering away in the background, trying to remove those barriers. So now you can see that ChatGPT, GPT-4 Turbo, you can have fine tuning, but even create custom models for you, which is super expensive, more for large
Yeah.
companies. But that's today.
No, or even open source ones. Like for example, I saw that like someone was putting a pit photo of Marilyn Monroe into GPT-4 Vision and asking like, who is this person? Is she famous? Is she beautiful? And GPT-4 Vision says, I cannot comment on a person, blah blah blah, whatever. But an open source model, I saw it loaded into, and it said, this is Marilyn Monroe. She's very famous. This is from this, like this, like so. You know, AI selection, AI customization, and your team having an AI first mindset, that's what you have to have basically, right? Because like there are all the possibilities.
And because the playing field's changing all the time, you don't always want to go running down one alleyway with one particular provider. You want to have the ability in the back end to understand what is the
Yeah, have a
best
modular
model.
approach.
Yeah, what is the best model to achieve the outcome that we want in our business, and then you can choose it in that way. So that's a huge topic. We're gonna focus more and more on training. We're finding that training is where people find it the easiest sort of entree really into artificial intelligence. It makes people more
100%.
comfortable, they understand it more, the fear goes away, and they start to understand the power of it essentially. So we're going to come back to that. Now, my AI of the week, I think, because it is the power of it is I've been playing with lots of them, all these different image generation, video generation. It's probably SDXL Turbo, which is a Stability AI. And this is this real-time image generation, which soon will be real-time video generation. So it's almost like you have an image in your mind, you're trying to get it out onto paper or onto a screen, and you're just sort of typing away or speaking, whatever you want to do, whatever the interface is, and you see it appear in front of you. If it's not quite right, you sort of delete some text, add some text. I mean, that is
Yeah.
almost like plugging into your
Remember,
brain
remember,
your own creativity.
remember like there's programs where you see like where basically like someone would be like a witness for a crime and they'd be saying like, okay, how they were 6 foot tall or they had brown eyes, their hair, the eyebrows like this, and the sketcher is like sketching. But this is like that in HD basically in real time, right? You know, like
Yeah, so that's another job that's going out the window. people, people, it's unbelievable, isn't it? It's just the implications. So yeah, SDXL Turbo. Go and I always say, you're probably not going to use this immediately in your business, right? But go and have a play with them. If you haven't used is it Clip Drop?
everyone
Yeah,
makes content.
Stability AI, Clip Drop, all these
Everyone,
different
yeah.
tools. Just go and use them and play with them. Because what it's going to do is educate you about the power of these things, and
Open your mind.
that's today.
Open your
Yeah,
mind.
we always say this is like Snake or Pong. This is very, very basic stuff. In a year's time, Sam Altman said this at
Sam
the
Altman said, yeah,
yeah
look quaint.
yeah, exactly. These tools are going to look quaint within another year's time. So who knows what we're going to be talking about on ChatGPT second birthday. So that's it for this week. Well, we're going to come back. We'll probably do a sort of roundup and then some forecasts of what we think is going to happen in 2024. But again, if you haven't
I've
downloaded,
got my prediction. I've got one
there
of
you are.
I've got one of them. Yeah, yeah. But
I've got a few stored up. But it's going to be bonkers.
Yeah, so
It's going to be
we'll
really
catch you on the
exciting,
next.
actually. And then we're going to need a break, Aalok, because
Huge.
next year we're not going to sleep. So yeah, download our white papers if you want to have, understand how to start implementing AI in your business, how to augment your workforce. Please do, share this podcast with the audio, watch the video version on YouTube. Please subscribe. We'll do some more subscribers there, and please do rate the show, especially on Apple if you enjoy it and find it
Yeah, reviews.
helpful.
We really appreciate them,
Yeah, they really are helpful,
and we'll
actually.
get back to you. Yeah.
Also, we appreciate the feedback as well. Any feedback, let us know. And also, let us know what you thought of the workshop edition, because we can do some more of those as we roll out content like that. So that's it for this week. This is the AI Assisted Organization podcast. Myself, Piers and Aalok Shukla. We'll see you again next week.
Yeah.